Recognize the biases. Emotions are continually affecting our processes and decisions below the level of our awareness. Sounds a bit loud. We should adjust volume. Okay. And the most common emotion of them all is the desire for pleasure and the avoidance of pain. Our thoughts almost inevitably revolve around this desire. We simply recoil from entertaining ideas that are unpleasant or painful to us. We imagine we are looking for the truth or being realistic, when in fact we are holding on to ideas that bring a release from the tension and soothe our egos, make us feel superior. This pleasure principle in thinking is the source of all of our mental biases. If you believe that you are somehow immune to any of the following biases, it is simply an example of the pleasure principle in action. Confirmation bias. I look at the evidence and arrive at my decisions through more or less rational processes. But because of the pleasure principle and its unconscious influence, we manage to find the evidence that confirms what we want to believe. This is known as confirmation bias. In the end, people want to hear their own ideas and preferences confirmed by an expert opinion. They will interpret what you say in light of what they want to hear, and if your advice runs counter to their desires, they will find some ways to dismiss your opinion, your so-called expertise. The more popular the person, the more they are subject to this form of the confirmation bias. When investigating confirmation biases in the world, take a look at the areas that seem a little good to be true. Conviction bias. I believe this idea so strongly, it must be true. Those, on the other hand, who express nuances, whose tone is more hesitant, reveal weakness and self-doubt. They are probably lying, or so we think. This bias makes us susceptible to salesmen and demagogues who display conviction as a way to convince and deceive. They know that people are hungry for entertainment, so they cloak their half-truths with dramatic effects. Appearance bias. I understand the people are they want. I see them just as they are. We see people not as they are, but as they appear to us. And these appearances are usually misleading. First, people have trained themselves in a social situation to present a front that is appropriate and that will be judged positively. They seem to be in favor of novelist causes, always presenting themselves as hardworking and conscientious. We take these mass for reality. Second, we are prone to fall for the halo effect. When we see certain negative or positive qualities in a person, social awareness, intelligence, other positive or negative qualities are implied that fit with us. People who are good looking generally seem more trustworthy, particularly politicians. If a person is successful, we imagine they're probably also ethical, conscientious, and deserving of their good fortune. This obscures the fact many people who have gotten or had done such less than moral actions, which they cleverly disguise from you. The group bias. My ideas are my own. I do not listen to the group. I'm not a conformist. We are social animals by nature. The feeling of isolation, of difference from the group, is depressing and terrifying. We experience tremendous relief when we find others who think the same way we do. In fact, we are motivated to take up ideas and opinions because they bring us this relief. We are unaware of this pull, and so imagine we have to come to certain ideas completely on our own. Yet, who would ever admit this influence on their thought patterns? The blame bias. I learn from experience and mistakes. Mistakes are the values elicit the need to explain. We want to learn the lesson and not repeat the experience. But in truth, we do not like to look too close at what we did. Our introspection is limited. Our natural response is to blame others, circumstances, or a momentary lapse of judgment. The reason for this bias is that it's too often too painful to look at our mistakes. It calls into question a feeling of superiority. It pokes at our ego. Superiority bias. I'm different. I'm more rational than others, more ethical as well. People will say this in people in conversation. It sounds arrogant, but in numerous opinion polls and studies, when asked to compare themselves with others, people generally express a variation of this. It is the equivalent of an optical illusion. We cannot seem to see our faults and the irrationalities, only those of others. We know, however, the reality, and so some people, perhaps all of us, are merely deceiving ourselves. Rationality and ethical qualities must be achieved through awareness and effort. They do not come naturally. They come through a maturation process. Beware the inflaming factors. Low-grade emotions continue to affect our thinking, and they originate from our own impulses. For instance, the desire for pleasing and comforting thoughts. High-grade emotion, however, comes at certain moments, reaches an explosive pitch, and is generally sparked by something external, a person who gets under our skin or particular circumstances. The level of arousal is higher and our attention is captured completely. The more we think about the emotion, the stronger it gets, which makes us focus even more on it, and so on and so forth. Our minds turn into the emotion, and everything reminds us of our anger or excitement. We become reactive. It is best to be aware of these factors so that you can stop the mind from tunneling and prevent the releasing action that will always come to regret. You should also be aware of a high grade of rationality in others to either get out of their way or help bring them back to reality. First and foremost, it is existence through history and in all cultures of people of high rationality, the types who have made the progress possible. Warren Buffett, to name but a few. All of these types share certain qualities: a realistic appraisal of themselves and their weaknesses, a devotion to truth and reality, a tolerant attitude toward people, and the ability to reach goals that they have set. The second factor is that almost all of us, at some point in our lives, have experienced the moments of a greater rationality. This often comes with what we shall call the maker's mindset. We have a project to get done, perhaps with a deadline. The only emotion we can afford is excitement and energy. Other emotions simply make it impossible to concentrate. Because we have to get results, we become exceptionally practical. We focus on the work, our mind becomes our ego not intruding. If people try to interrupt or infect us with emotions, we resent it. These moments, as fleeting a few weeks or hours, reveal the rational self that is waiting to come out. It just requires some awareness and some practice. Know yourself thoroughly. The emotional self derives on ignorance. The moment you are aware of how it operates and dominates you is the moment it loses its hold on you and can be tamed. Therefore, your first step toward the rational is always inward. You want to catch that emotional stuff in action. For this purpose, you must reflect on how you operate under stress. What particular weaknesses come out in such moments? The desire to please, to bully or control, the levels of mistrust. Look at your decisions, especially those that have been ineffective. Can you see a pattern, an underlying insecurity that impels them? Examine your strengths. What makes you different from other people? This will help you decide upon goals with a match with your long-term interests and that are aligned with your skills. By knowing and valuing what makes you as different, you will also be able to resist and pull up the group bias and effect. Examine your emotions to their roots. You're angry. Let the feelings settle from within and think about it. Was it triggered by something similarly trivial or petty? That is a sure sign that someone or something else behind it. Perhaps a more uncomfortable emotion is at the source, such as envy or paranoia. You need to look at it square in the eye. Dig below any trigger points to see where they started. For these purposes, it might be wise to use a journal in which you record your self-assessments with ruthless objectivity. Your greatest danger is your ego and how it makes you unconsciously maintain illusions about yourself. These may be comforting in the moment, but in the long run, they make you defensive and unable to learn or progress. Find a neutral position from which you can observe your actions with a bit of detachment and even humor. Soon all of this will become second nature, and when the emotional self suddenly raises high in some situation, you will see it as it happens and be able to step back and find the neutral position. Increase your reaction time. This power comes through practice and repetition. When some event or interaction requires a response, you must train yourself to step back. This could mean physically removing yourself to a place where you can be alone and not feel any pressure to respond. Or it could mean writing that angry email but not sending it. You sleep on it for a day or two. You do not make phone calls or communicate while feeling of some sudden emotion, particularly resentment. If you find yourself rushing to commit to people, to hire or be hired by them, step back and give it a day. Cool the emotions down. The longer you can take, the better, because perspective comes with time. Consider this like resistance training. The longer you can resist reacting, the more mental space you have for actual reflection, and the stronger your mind will become. Accept people as facts. Yes, people are irrational, but so are you. Find the optimal balance of thinking and emotion. We cannot divorce emotions from thinking. The two are completely intertwined. But there is inevitably a dominant factor. Some people are more cleverly governed by emotions than others. The horse is of emotional nature, continually impelling us to move. This horse has tremendous energy and power, but without the rider, it cannot be guided. It is wild, subject to predators, and continually heading into trouble. The rider is our thinking self. Through training and practice, it holds the reins and guides the horse, transforming this powerful animal into something productive. The one without the other is useless. Without the rider, so directive and movement of purpose. Without the horse, no energy, no power. In most people, the horse dominates and the rider is weak. Instead of being slaves to this energy, we channel it. That is the essence of irrationality. As an example of this idea in action, try to maintain perfect balance between skepticism and curiosity. The two can coexist. It is a balance that all geniuses possess. You have felt this in your own life. You have felt this in your own life. When observing a project, time flies by, and experience an occasional burst of excitement as you make discoveries and progress in your work. There are other pleasures as well. Being able to tame the emotional self leads to an overall calmness and clarity. In this state of mind, you are less consumed by petty conflicts and considerations. Your actions are more effective, which also leads to less turmoil. You have the immense satisfaction of mastering yourself in a deep way. You have more mental space to be creative. You feel more in control.